Excellent. There we go. So we're going to run through this pretty quickly, but this is our agenda. Boom. And kind of expectations. And the idea of this session is that we're going to identify various forms of pair programming. We're going to talk about what a DTR is and how to have a DTR conversation. You're going to talk about how our relating styles cause us to interact with others, defining our expectations in a working relationship, apply strategies to hold your partners accountable, and demonstrate how to address broken expectations. This deliverable, you don't have to do that because you don't have pairs yet, but and we'll talk about when you have to deliver that, but that's not really important right now. And so the big picture is like, why do we make you work with people at Turing? Would it technically not be better to work on your own? And like, you know, sometimes yes. Most of the time that is a big no. And the kind of the big picture is like, gone are the days where programmers work alone. Like, building software is now a large collaborative process. Pairing with other programmers is an essential practice, and getting good at working with other people is going to lead you to immense amounts of success in the future. Cool. Let's take a minute thinking about past experience working with others. I think that for most of you, I think that a bad experience like probably popped right in your head. But like, yeah, I think that we've all had bad, you know, I think in group projects, you always have that one person who doesn't do anything, and then you have to pick up the slack, I think is a common thing that we, most of us experience. But like, take a moment to kind of reflect upon like some of the good experiences, like what made some of the things that you really appreciate about a teammate that you really liked working with. And so we want to set some expectations for pair programming. We're going to look at some patterns here. Driver, navigator, ping pong, distributed pairing, also known as remote pairing, is what we, you know, a lot of you will be doing in this. And we're going to talk a little bit of, address kind of like some of the styles. And let me find my tab. So there are different kind of styles of pair programming. Pair programming is essentially when two programmers are working together on a project. And I think that like the idea is that pair programming has a lot of different benefits in many different ways, because like when we think about it, like working alone can be difficult in terms of like maybe you get stuck at a thing. Like I'm sure that you all have had this point where you're just staring at the screen, you're not making any kind of productive progress. Having a pair nearby can, you know, like give us a second set of eyes looking at something. You know, how many times have we just like missed a comma or something, and then we ask someone like really frustrated, and they're just like, yeah, missing a parentheses or a comma or whatever, just something silly, right? Having that second set of eyes is really useful. I think that pair programming can also lead to keeps you accountable, keeps you on track. I'm a person who can get distracted very easily. What turns into like a quick 5-minute lookup of something on Wikipedia turns into 2-hour 2-hour exploration about some topic that's not really related. I think the last thing I was looking up something, and then I spent like a good half hour researching torpedoes on Wikipedia. I'm like, I don't know how I got there, but there I was, knowing things about torpedoes and cavitation. These are real topics, and I just decided 11 at night, this is what I'm going to read about, and this is how I'm going to spend my time. And we talk about like the kind of patterns with pair programming. And I think that driver navigator is the first one I'm going to talk to. And I think that's the first, it's the one you'll probably feel a little most comfort working with. And I think it's the most established style working. I think that you'll see this pattern more than anything else. And I guess the idea is like, has anyone seen rally driving? Essentially those rally cars, it's like four-wheel drive racing, and it looks absolutely terrifying. And there are these people who stand like right next to the road where like cars are just like 3 feet away, and that no, not for me. But how it works is that there's not just one person driving the car. They have a navigator with them that knows the course by heart and will tell in advance to the driver every single turn and how hard and how sharp the turn is and like how things are like. And the driver, all they are there is just doing what the navigator tells them to do. And so what the driver does is they focus on like the tactical concerns relating to the activity. In the example of the rally car driver, the driver is focused on operating the gas, the brakes, turning the wheels, making sure they don't hit anything at all. The navigator looks out for like the big picture. And so when we translate this to programming, the driver is going to be handling the typing, the navigating, and basic implementation, right? Like, so the navigator will say, make a car class. The driver will then, okay, creates, let's say it starts from scratch. They create the lib directory. They create a car.rb file. They type in class car end, right? Like the small tactical they're in charge of. The navigator is going to look at like what are we doing in general, like why do I need this class, are the methods you're creating, like what you're like checking for like typos, you all have seen me type at this point. You will be amazed by the fact that I sometimes can write code within our navigator checking my typos. Right, the navigator is responsible for those things, responsible for thinking about the big picture, like is the implementation that my driver is creating fit with the big picture? Are we doing something that we've already done somewhere else and we can like reuse that code? Are we like painting ourselves into the corner, that kind of example, right? And driver navigator works well in like many different kind of roles where there's like an expert, novice, and so forth. Any kind of questions about driver navigator? And I think the expectation is that every once in a while you switch off, because this way, like I think that very rightfully so, it would get very boring for one person to do one thing all the time, right? And I think for me, I feel that a good breaking point is like, hey, every Pomodoro break, you switch. I feel that's like a long enough time where you can really tear into something, but not so long that you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. So any questions about driver navigator here? Cool. Pretty straightforward. I like how it's called driver navigator because it's like, I think that there's a very pretty like descriptive terminology for it. Like the driver does a thing and navigator kind of guides the process. Next is ping pong. Ping pong. It's an interesting and differentiating factor. I think that the people that are behind ping pong pairing are advocates of this methodology called extreme programming. And you when you refer to it, you have to say extreme in that tone of voice because it is extreme. And I think that extreme programming are huge. They're very hugely into TDD, and they have this like the idea. I think the thing that stuck out to me most about people that are into extreme programming is that they believe that at 9 a.m. you are like all go, like we are doing programming. We're just like all just heads in, just like really focused on getting the thing done, doing the thing. But at like, of course, taking Pomodoro breaks and that stuff. But at 5, you're done. Like you do not work past 5. Like this window of time is our serious business work time. And then when that serious business work time is over, that's it. We cut it off. I thought that was like the very, very interesting. I don't think I could work very well that way. because I work in a very way. It's like, I'll go read about torpedoes for 2 hours, but I'll be up till 8 at night. That works for me. I'm not saying that, that's something that works for you, but like how I like to work, I'm not a kind of a person. So the cadence of ping pong programming is one person writes a failing test. Next person gets it to pass. And then that person who got passed writes another test. And then person A writes it past. Like, so you can see why it's called ping pong. It's just like back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And people like this because it's like, hey, we're kind of doing things on your own. And I think that as you, as we kind of like get through, you might experiment with different kind of like these techniques. And ping pong can be kind of fun in terms of, it also is a variation on this pattern I call asshole. Where someone writes a test and the next person just writes a test that barely makes it pass. And then the person now is forced to write a better test, and then you have to rewrite things, right? That can be you're kind of being a jerk, but it's also like you can have fun with that. If you have the right kind of personality types, you could be like, yeah, I see what you did there. I think for like a couple of programmers who like have a good relationship, like a fun relationship, like that could be a methodology that works for you. And that is like something that works well. Distributed. Distributed is a very vague term. I think that, yes, by definition, everything we do is going to be distributed, but this is going to be more, I think, where we get into like your larger group project, where two pairs can be working on separate things at the same time. This is why we have GitHub that allows a code base to be maintained and updated by a number of individuals. Any comments, questions about the methodologies? Oh, I saw a hand ever so momentarily flash up. Zach.
So for the driver navigator and ping pong, are we like, when we switch, are we just updating like GitHub and doing git pushes and then retrieving those and doing it that way? Or how exactly are we switching?
I think it depends on how you want to do it. Like I think I may have mentioned this before. Like for me, Git workflow is very organic. We say that, I think I talked about this in one of my checking groups yesterday. I like to group commits in terms of like a chunk of work done. I also commit every single time I take a Pomodoro break, because the idea is that I want to commit and push, because like what if during my Pomodoro break I were to actually knock over a cup of water and ruin my computer? Like I want that code lived somewhere. I don't want to lose all the kind of work. That being said, I'm also very bad at taking breaks. I talked a little bit about getting into that flow state where you're just like, you feel like you are the most creative person on this planet, and like DaVinci has nothing on you and you just need to keep going. And like at times like that, like I will forget to take breaks. I will forget to commit. We want you to commit you to commit on a regular basis, so that one, you don't lose anything. Two, so you have the muscle memory of making commits on a regular basis, which is good practice anyway. As it comes to the rubric, like I would say that the version control is probably the least important of all the rubric portions, because like getting you to commit more is a very teachable thing. It's just like setting a timer or doing some other kind of like regular reminder to do that. Whereas not understanding a concept, that's a lot tougher thing to kind of track. So I would say for you and your pair, I would say at the very least commit every Pomodoro break. I would also say committing like after you get a test and passing code would be another good time to commit as a general rule of thumb.
I mean, more of like, how do you like, so say we're doing ping pong, I made a test and they made it pass. Then like, would I do like a git push and a git pull in order to pull like the lib side and they pull down the test side? And,
you can no, you would there are tools that let you screen share and let you control another person's computer.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, you could also do that push and pull. That is definitely a way to do it. Multiple ways you can do it. Like we have plenty of tools. But like to start off with, the push and pull also works.
Adam also has a tool called Teletype.
Cool. Taylor?
So who do you just pick someone to host the repository then, or?
Yeah, we'll talk about how to work with GitHub in pairs on Monday.
Okay.
I think it's on Monday. So at some point there is a class. I think it's Monday or Tuesday, where that will kind of happen.
All right. Thank you.
Go, Jake.
Is the thing that you answered Zach's question with, is that like the paired I keep seeing? That's a way to like control somebody else's
The what?
screen?
I'm sorry?
Or the paired app? Or
no, the paired app just like connects people. Hope said there's a plugin called Teletype. There are applications called like Tuple that lets you control someone else's computer, or you could just push and pull. Like that is definitely all these things that work too.
Okay.
Yep, plenty of tools. Cool. Where are my slides? So yeah, we're all ready to pair, right? Like I talked to you for like 10 minutes, and like we're all ready to work together. Not so fast. The first thing to do when working together with a pair is that we need to define the relationship, right? We have a link that I'll post to you about like this form you fill out, and like let me actually just post it in here. Oh, did I lose it already? For the record, computers are the worst. There we go. Put this in your Slack channel. Go work on computers, they said. It'll be fun, they said. And so we have in here define the relationship kind of guidelines memo, right? We want to have some guiding questions to define this relationship, and some other, we have a bunch of things that we want you to do. And the idea is that at the very bottom, we have a template for your memo, and we expect this template to be submitted with your to be submitted when you start working with your pair. And the idea here is that we want to give you the tools to be able to communicate with your teammates about what expectations are, right? Like I think that a lot of friction caused, a lot of friction between two people or groups of people in general are caused by expectations that are not met, right? And here the idea, some of one of the goals of having a DTR memo in writing is like, hey, these are expectations. Like if, I think I had an example, like when I was a student for a project, one of my teammates was a single parent, and I realized that like that is challenging. They said up front like, hey, I can't stay at Turing to work right after Turing, but like I can work at night. And like me knowing that, like up front, I was like, oh yeah, cool. Like they'll just be on later. And like that was like cool. But rather I feel I actually I know that if like we had not communicated that, like I'm like they always just leave right afterwards. Like, like that. Like what's going on there? And like by saying explicitly, like that's just one example. Like setting expectations early on, leads to like kind of less friction. And I would also say like this here is like the DTR is not like written in stone. It is a living document. I recommend that every team for like a multi-week project or like halfway through, hey, take the time to revisit the DTR, because like expectations can change, like things just may change, like and just going through, it's like, hey, are these things still true? Have we been true to what we said? If not, let's reset expectations and let's get all on the same page together. Like doing that is probably so critical, because I think that like we all have at the beginning of a project, we're all like, I will do whatever it takes to make my teammates like, we're going to do this together. It's going to be great. I'm going to do everything. And then, but like, as you get tired, like the halt we were talking about yesterday, as you get tired, hungry, lonely, angry, like sometimes those can slip. And then so like, hey, I'm like, yeah, I know I said that I need, that I would be doing this, but like in reality, I need some extra time for myself. And just like communicate that to everyone, make sure like, hey, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. it's kind of really important. And like, I think DTR memo like leads to good teamwork and good teams. At Turing module teams, we all do DTR when we start working together, when we switch around new teams. So that's like something that we do, we find super useful as well. When you reach out to your mentors, we gave you this kind of like a template so you could define the relationship with your mentor. So like expectations are set for every party involved, and like there are no surprises. I would say that in this memo that I've linked you to, the remote work considerations during the COVID-19 quarantine, otherwise known as the hellscape we now call 2020, really important to like review. Make sure you answer those in particular, because it's like, hey, what is remote focusing? That's a really good question. Like, what are some of the things that can cause life to get in the way? Like, how do you handle power outages? Zoom being Zoom. Things like that. I think that's like super important to like really address and just like set the expectations early on. Any questions here about this DTR memo or having the filling it out together? Cool. All right. Other things to consider, how we communicate. So how we communicate is kind of revolved around three things, right? The parent ego state, like how we're taught, shown by need, control, and nurture. The adult ego state is like our thought concept of life, and like how we kind of use reason, and like our child ego state, like our felt concept, shown through how easily we adapt to new situations and exercise freedom. And the idea is that in a perfect world, when we communicate, you know, from one ego state to another, you know, the other person would be the kind of the same thing. But life really isn't that simple, right? And we can see here, like, what happens when they're not aligned correctly. Like, for example, like this is complementary. Like sometimes we have a situation where it's like a person says, hey, I feel like shit. The other person's like, hey, what can I do? And that's like, you're communicating in different kind of states, but you're kind of helping each other out. We have cross misaligned and like that. Oof. Not great. That's not a conversation I would like to have with anyone that way. And we have like the misaligned unspoken. So we talked about pair measures, how you communicate. If you can reference your pairing results. I will, like I said, also give you these slides when we're all set. And we have an older chart of for the 2003 cohort, what this looked like. And essentially all over the place. So we know that, like, be aware that people communicate in different ways, receive communication in different ways, and be mindful of that. Cool. Any questions so far about this? Let's throw this out to the crowd. Like, what are some of your anxieties about going into a pair project? If anyone would like to volunteer. All right, let's go in order. Curtis?
Mute is hard.
Yeah.
Honestly, just like failing the team, like not being dependable enough or not like being capable of, I don't know, like meeting the expectations.
Yeah, that's legit. That's totally legit. Jake?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. Just to be on really either end of that spectrum, where you either feel like you're carrying the whole team or that you are inadequate and can't keep up with everybody.
I think it's important as we go into pair projects, like having, like we talk about this a lot, like about having compassion for your teammate. I think that in general, turning in general, we would much rather see a a team do less well on a project than having one person have done all the work. And I'll tell you straight up, like when I was first joining, I was not a good pair partner. I was not a good pair partner. My first pair project, like did not go well, and like one of us did all the work, and well, I was just saying I did all the work, and I felt real like I did not treat my pair well. Like I'll be honest about that, and like like a lot of learning happened on my end because of that, and like I realized like it is not. I think that came from this place where I thought of churning as a competitive place. Like I need to like be at the top of the class. I need to like do all things, because like I think that for me that's what education was for me up to then. I think that you have that K through 12, like that understanding educational systems. Like I was not a good person. I've since learned to be better about that kind of thing. Garrett?
Yeah, it's pretty much along those same lines as what everyone else was saying. But I think like one of my biggest concerns is like differences, especially in like mod 1, like differences in learning speed and kind of like where people are at starting mod 1. So like you might have like one pair partner who this is entirely new versus maybe another pair partner who, has a background in this or is repeating mod 1. And so like the one pair partner could get it. It will just take them longer. And so the other pair partner ends up ultimately like feeling like they're doing all the work because they're a little bit faster in like just picking things up. So they end up being the one who's like kind of coming forward with all of the answers, just like one step ahead of the other person.
Yeah, I think that's a valid kind of like concern. Sean?
The biggest thing for me, and I know it's not for everyone, obviously, but those who do have kids, that's always an extra set of challenges that you have to overcome, whether it's a time restraint or noise in the background type of thing. So every time I go into a pair project, that's always like in the back of my mind that, I'm going to ask for essentially some understanding to that regard, as well as a very rude cat.
I have to tell you, like I do enjoy it when I see a cat just cross one of your screens. That is a treat for me. So don't feel that like I'm pretty sure it's a treat for everyone involved. So don't ever feel if you have cats that this is a problem. But yeah, I think that I think that we can feel better about like this potential. Like don't ever feel like you're holding someone back. I think that people who may or may not feel like they are a little ahead of the game should look at this as an opportunity to develop the skills of speaking and conveying technical concepts in a way that people can understand. I'm firmly of the opinion that you do not understand something until you are able to explain to someone else and show someone else like the concept. And like the idea is that you'll be tested during the interview process for a job time and time again, not just your ability to write code, but be able to talk about it. That is like so important. Jesse?
Yeah, Mike, back to your experience, do you mind speaking a little bit more as to what you would have done differently in your pair?
Yeah. I would have stopped caring about the scores. I was focused on passing the project, and like now I understand, like with, of course, the knowledge of hindsight, that like scores don't matter, right? In terms of like, I don't feel good about what happened, and I think going back, I would have spent more time making sure we're both on the same page, no matter how far that led us in terms of how the project went. The thing is that like at the time, like I don't want to make excuses. At the time, I just thought that like we need to get this project to pass. And I can tell you now, like now that like having had that experience, I can say to you now, it is more important to me that you work together and you both are on the same page. We will talk more about this when we talk about GitHub repairs, but in a pair project or in a group project, there is no my code and their code. It's all of your code. Every single line of code there should be understood by both people. There's none of this, oh, that person wrote that. Like, there's none of that. Like, if it is on GitHub, it is both of yours, and you both share the responsibility for good and for worse, I suppose. Right? So, like, the good side is that if there's something really good in there, it's both of you did. That's great. The downside is, like, something's not great. It's like, well, you know, like, this is responsibility for both of you. Yeah. Did that answer your question? Should I go into more detail?
That does. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. I think it's very challenging when we're used to traditional education and we think about like I need to get that score, you know. Will?
Yeah, so just for clarity, and I think you may have said this, but yeah, like you said, in regular school, sometimes what we would do is you'd break up a project and be like, you go work on this and I'll go work on this. But what I'm hearing is you don't do that in this situation. You basically should all.
Yeah, in pair project, no. I think that like when we get to your group project, there will be opportunities to do that. Because like, you know, 4 people, like, so another kind of pairing methodology is called mob programming. And don't ever do mob programming. It's like when anything gets designed by committee, it's like, it's just garbage. But like the idea is that like, in a larger, like the 4-person project, there'll be like, you'll generally split up into like 2 pairs. Right, and you'll work on separate things, and that's like, you got to do that because you're not. It is rather human, like person hour wasteful for 4 people to be doing one thing, unless it is something that everyone needs input on. You know, like it has to be done that way. But like that, there will be opportunities in a pair project. Like I think that. One of the challenges that you may discover is like some people cannot work or like work better at different time zones. I also kind of presume that some of you may be in different time zones. Yes? Yeah, right. So, and also like just working styles. Like I consider myself a morning person, a night person forced into a morning person's hours. I hate being a morning person, but when I wake up at 6 a.m. and I start working at 6 a.m., I am 100% more productive. So like there are differences in that way, but that doesn't mean that you can work on the same thing. It's like we have to adjust our approach, as in a person like may do something like in the morning, but when you get back together in the middle of the day, it's like, hey, this is what I did, let's walk through it so we're all on the same page, right? So like again, like the important thing is that we are all, the 2 pairs are all on the same page. John?
Just to kind of share what Mike said, I did do the group project, and I feel like I'm on tax every time he says there is no your code or my code, because during the review he literally pointed and said, John, what does this method do? And I looked at him and I said, I don't know, that I didn't write that. And it's kind of useless, because if I had to do that project all over again, it would be almost a brand new project for me, because I only know what I did. And I don't think that's the point. So just wanted to share that with everyone. Know what you're doing.
And I think that like this will get challenging on your 4-person project, right? Because there will be so much more. And we're not asking for like rote memorization. If I ask like, oh, where's this? You know exactly the file and the line of code. Like, no, like that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, do you know what this does? Right? Like a general kind of thing. Will?
We guys provide sort of like a recommendation on how we sort of go through these projects. Like imagine if we do divvy stuff up, it might make sense to do some group pseudo-coding beforehand, or like do you guys provide like sort of a, hey, here's a good way to start a project and go through it?
I mean, like when in terms of like, let's say a group project, I think, and we'll talk more about this when we get to the group project, like the specification will be laid out in a way where, and we'll give you some project management tools as well, where we can be like, okay, I think that me and like me and Carson, we're gonna work on this chunk. What are you doing today? And like we really suggest like in that group project, like every day or so in the morning, just lay out like, okay, who's working on what? Okay, cool. Can we check back in at lunch and see where we all are? And then that. I think that like in working remote like this separately, I think it's very important to check in with each other. I would say at least, thrice a day. I would probably do like a morning check-in, like, hey, what you finished on the night before? Check in at lunch. Hey, where are we all at? Beginning at the evening, beginning at like 4 o'clock, like when Turing finishes, let's get our plan sorted out where we're going to be for the rest of the evening. And then the morning check-in is like from what happened in the last two. Like over communicating will be your best friend in making sure a project goes smoothly. Let's do Joshua.
So something I'm thinking of, and this might be covered with those like project management tools that we're going to cover. But just like this current project we're working on, it's like each iteration builds off of the previous one. So it's just like, how do you divvy up the work?
You got to
so I guess, okay.
I'm sorry. Sometimes that's what the answer is. Like you got to read it and like you got to figure out like what can be divvied, what can't be divvied. Or are you familiar with the idea of a Gantt chart?
I am not.
It's GANTT. It's this project management tool called a Gantt chart. And what the Gantt chart does is that it lays out what things need to happen in the sequence and also lays out what things are blockers for other blockers. So you can kind of like see it where I was like, well, I can't move forward until this gets done. Let's go attack this. Or like, hey, are you done with this part yet? Like I need this part to be done before I can do that. I think the Gantt chart is like the best thing on this planet. I use it for Thanksgiving dinners when I'm trying to cook Thanksgiving because it's like, because like I have a small apartment. I've got limited resources. I've got one oven. I've got 4 burners. Like this stuff needs to plan it out. So Gantt charts also useful for more things than programming. Jake?
So would that kind of be like a Kanban on steroids?
Yeah. The Kanban board we use something very similar to that. We use GitHub projects, which essentially what you do, you have these columns and you have cards. Let me actually I can bring you up one that I'm working on for my app. So this is GitHub project. Can you all see this? Yep. And I have columns. I have nice to have. So you can name these columns whatever you want. For me, this is what I did. I have nice to haves, things to do, things that are in progress, waiting for review, and complete. Like these are these are individual cards or issues in GitHub. And what happens is that when an issue gets created, it goes in the to do column. Whenever someone works on something, they pull it over to in progress and they click assign to myself. You can see this one's mine. And it's my little picture in it, so I know who's working on it. And like anyone that looks at this board and like, okay, this is what Mike is working on. And we see your character should be able multi-class. This is what Daniel's working on. Cool. When one of us finishes our story, what we'll do is we'll drag it over to waiting for review and we'll ping everyone else like, hey, can someone take a look at my pull request? If there's any discussion, we have a discussion. If there's any changes, the changes are made. If it's ready to go, the reviewer merges in that pull request and the card moves over to complete. For funsies, there used to be a column here that says stuff Mike doesn't want to work on. But I didn't feel that was fair to do, so I took that away. And technically, the nice to haves is the column of stuff Mike doesn't want to work on. And so anyone can pull that out, a card out of there if they want. Yeah. So we use just GitHub products. Other things people use, Pivotal Tracker is a tool. Jira is one you may have heard of. But cool. That is 12:01. I've gone a little late, but you're all set. Let's have a good lunch. and we will be back later today for a gear up. Enjoy your lunchtime. I hope it is delicious.
Thank you, Mike.